with David Glaser of Annapolis. Thank you for taking time with us. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I guess we'll start with the questions and get those taken care of, and then we can sort of branch out if that's good with you.
Sure.
Our first question is, where did you come from? What brought you to this point?
Well, I came from Baltimore, northeast Baltimore. I moved here when I was a young man. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. My then partner, John Van Dyke, and I got our first gig in Annapolis in 1976 at, what's it called now?
Dock Street?
Dock Street. Yeah, back then it was called Papillon, and then later it became Mountains and Eagle Alley and some other ones. But we started hanging around Annapolis in 76, and I'm still here.
Goodness.
How many years is that? It's like, 40 years?
Almost. That's great. How would you describe our scene to visitors? What should they not miss?
Well, Annapolis is an incredibly beautiful place. I think those of us who live here sometimes take it for granted. But sometimes, like if I'm coming down Route 2 past the Naval Academy overlook, sometimes it still takes my breath away. Or like riding over one of the Severn River bridges, or any one of the bridges around here, maybe one of the bridges on the South River. And I just think to myself, God, this place is so beautiful. And sometimes we forget how beautiful it is. And it's really old, and it's really cool. There's lots of great places to eat. The music scene is pretty outstanding. I think Annapolis is home to one of the finest small live music venues in America, in my opinion, the Ram's Head on Stage. Played there many times with, in fact, I'm playing there next weekend with Dan Navarro and Alice Paul. But I first played there, I guess, with Lone and Navarro about 10 years ago. It would have been the first time on that big stage there.
How did you get into that, into playing with Lone and Navarro?
Well, I met Eric Lowen and Dan Navarro at the 1990 Annapolis Wine Festival, which was, we were playing a lot at Middleton's that time, Van Dyke and Glaser Band, and we either had just put out or were coming out with Van Dyke and Glaser live at Middleton's, which was a live album that we recorded at Middleton's. And the guy running the wine festival was Jerry Hardesty and Bob Harrison, from the owner and general manager respectively of Middleton's at the time. So we got booked at the festival. Well, their headliner was this great band that everybody loved that had this fantastic song on the radio called Walking on a Wire.
They were getting airplay from WHFS.
WHFS Nisi was like their big advocate. And she had a lot to do with making them happen in this area. And they really happened big time in the Baltimore, D.C., Annapolis area. Very popular here. But they played the Annapolis Wine Festival, as did Van Dyke and Glaser, so we ended up meeting and kind of hit it off and became friends. And over the years, went staying in touch, and they would come to town, they would touch base, and we'd go long stretches without seeing each other, but stayed friends through all that time. Then I think it was 2006, I bumped into Eric and Dan at the International Folk Alliance Conference in Memphis, Tennessee. And we were like, oh my God, what are you doing? Oh
I know
God,
you.
Oh my God. And we kind of reconnected. And of course, at the time, Eric was going through dealing with ALS. And Eric has since passed away. But he was losing his ability to play. He was already in a wheelchair. and but he was still able to play and sing. And he was starting to lose his ability to play, so they needed a guitar player to kind of cover those parts. And having so many shows in this area, they were thinking of, you know, somebody from around here, and they thought of me.
Thankfully.
And they asked me to play with them. And it was an amazing thing for me. It really changed my life. It got me totally connected up with more like the singer-songwriter scene, and kind of pulled me away from the bar scene in Annapolis.
What are some of the places that you travel to with regularity?
Well, I play with a lot of different people nowadays, and I still play with Dan.
Mm-hmm.
And when Eric retired and then eventually passed, Dan was touring quite a bit as a solo, and he was, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but he just felt better. He was so used to having this big guy standing next to him all those years. I think I made him comfortable because he had a kind of a safety net. And now he's much more comfortable with playing by himself, and he does it all the time.
That's fun. Well, and you guys have a great rapport too. I mean, you guys joke around a lot on stage. And
yes, and we've become
we should give a shout out here for Digger.
Come here, Dick. Come here, buddy.
Yeah, we'll introduce Digger to our audience.
Okay. All right. You've had your 10 seconds of fame. Go ahead.
Oh.
Go on.
Good work.
Yeah, Dan and I have become very close friends, and you know, we talk regularly, whether we're playing together or not. And he's absolutely one of my favorite people on the face of the earth.
That's cool.
Amazing guy.
That's very cool. What do you take from music? What does it give you?
Well, that's kind of like asking, what do you get from breathing? Mm-hmm. You know, for me, well, I guess I started really young. I started as a little kid playing guitar. I had an uncle who was a...
How young?
Oh, well, I wrote my first song for my second grade teacher.
Oh my goodness.
So, you know,
very young.
And I was playing, you know, I was probably playing when I was in first grade, I guess. You know, it started when I was 6. But I had an uncle who was a guitar player, and he played in local bands up in Baltimore country, you know, flat picker. And I guess I was messing around with his guitar, and he showed me a couple things. And my grandmother bought me a guitar, and you know, when I had my own, then I could just sit around and play. But I just immediately loved it. That's all I wanted to do, was sit around and play my guitar. And my family was involved in church. You know, we were a Southern Baptist family. And so I started playing a little bit at church, and, you know, singing in the youth choir.
X-ray Yankees, ooh, I love you. X-ray Yankees, ooh, I love you.
That sounds really cool. I'm going to include that if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of more of our scheduled questions.
Sure.
And sort of double back a little. We had talked about, what is the perfect gig? Where would it be? Who would you be with?
Well, to me, the perfect gig is what we do as songwriters is we deliver songs. We give our songs like it's a present wrapped up with a bow, you know. And some audiences are ready to receive it, and some aren't. So, you know, of course, the perfect gig is when the audience receives your gift and gives back to you, right? And you get this kind of circular love exchange going on where you're singing to the audience and they're loving what you're doing, and you're feeling it coming back from them. And it becomes this amazing feedback loop. And the show just, the more love you get from the audience, the more comfortable you feel, the better you play, right? So it's a little tricky, to get out there and kind of get that going. It's like trying to start a campfire or something. If you don't stack it just right, or if you have a bad start, sometimes it can be dicey. But there have been nights, I can think of a few perfect nights. Like at the Kerrville Folk Festival, the first time I played my songs on that stage was magical. I was playing with some friends of mine from Arkansas in a band called Three Penny Acre, and we shared a set at Kerrville, and that was a perfect night. And I remember playing with Lowen and Navarro. Many times we had perfect nights. Of a CD that you can still get called Rain Dance, which is a live recording of Van Dyke and Glaser's performance at that wine festival. Well, you'll notice on a couple of the songs, Lowen and Navarro and their band jumped on stage with us and started singing with us.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it was just that was a perfect show. Talking about perfect shows.
Well, and it's wonderful that you can continue on with Dan playing.
Yeah, and it's Dan that has kind of gotten me into the whole songwriter scene. Since then, I've met so many people through that relationship, and it kind of took me away from the Annapolis scene and into a more national scene, albeit it's still, for me, it's kind of different pockets around the country. Like I'll go to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and tour from there up to Fargo and back, or I'll go to Chicagoland or play a few shows there in Chicago area and Wisconsin, or I'll go to Austin, San Antonio, play some gigs with Will Taylor and Karen Mall and Strings Attached, and play a house concert, or play a festival gig here, a concert there, a church gig here.
So it's more clusters here and there as opposed to putting together a linear route where you go through and try to hit all of the towns.
It's what I call spot touring, where you go to a place, fly to a place, rent a car, kind of go around that bullseye for a long weekend or as much as 10 or 12 days, return the rental car and fly home. As opposed to in the old days when we used to go out in the tour bus and disappear for 3 or 4 months.
What a lot of our guys are doing now.
This is a lot more conducive to staying grounded. A lot of us have day jobs. I have a day job, and I fly out and tour out on the weekends.
And you meet up with people as well, right?
Yes.
So
Exactly.
So they're doing the same thing,
Right.
as opposed to sleeping in a van on the road.
Well, sure, and there's a lot of people that do that.
Right.
Like in the singer-songwriter scene, there's a lot of people that, they have vans that are, set up for them to live in.
Right.
And they'll take to the highway, and there's a song on my new album called Concrete River that's kind of about that. And, it's just a kind of a beautiful, crazy, gypsy lifestyle. And I have a young daughter. Well, it's not so young anymore. She's going to be a junior in college.
Wow.
But I've kind of enjoyed being able to tour that way because I can stay grounded. I can be here for her, and I can enjoy the best of both worlds. I can enjoy my home and also being away playing music.
Right. In the future, what do you hope to be known or remembered for?
Well, there's, of course, as a songwriter, I would like to continue to strive to write beautiful songs. My friend Bob Lucas said that all we ever try to do is to just create one fine thing, and I think that is a great parameter I would like to have one song that's good enough to maybe be remembered, after I'm gone. I would really like that. Just something that to put in the time capsule and say he was here on the planet. Of course, my daughter, is going to be my immortality and her children. So I'm very proud of that. I'd like to be remembered as a good dad. I think overall, in the overall music picture, I'd like to be remembered as somebody who really cared about music in general and about music as an art and about mentoring people and enabling people and helping people to become artists and to deliver their art. It's very important to me. I wish more people were more active in supporting the arts and letting people be their best creative selves.
So let's take a minute to go back to that C word, Charlie's. And because that's very important to me, I think of Charlie's as sort of an incubator. A lot of people would compare it maybe to the Whiskey or some of the other venues locally.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Charlie's, and if you don't know what Charlie's Westside was, it was started out, Charlie of Charlie's was Charlie Hiltebeitel, who was an amazing guy, big music lover. He was also a big wildlife and wetlands nature supporter. A lot of people don't know that about him. But he started this little music venue bar in West Annapolis. And it was originally called Charlie's Bluegrass. And they had exclusively bluegrass music.
And this was about what time frame?
I think this would be like the mid-70s, like 76, 77. Of course, Charlie's musical palette ranged well outside of bluegrass.
He was pretty eclectic, wasn't he?
He loved it all. I mean, Charlie's was the first place I ever saw Root Boy Slim. It was the first place I ever saw Tom Principato. We used to have everything from the sublime to the ridiculous and every denomination in between you could find it at Charlie's. And it was a great place for local bands. I was in a band at the time called Telluride, which was myself and John Van Dyke and a couple of other guys. Okay. So Telluride played at Charlie's, but also a lot of other bands, Band of a Thousand Names, which was Paul Reed Smith, the famous guitar maker.
And at the time, Band of a Thousand Names was quite literally that.
Yeah, it was.
They were always changing their name, weren't they?
Well, they couldn't decide on a name. Their first lead singer was a guy named Scott Wetterau, who was a friend. He was also a local bartender. But he was the guy that came up with it. And eventually it evolved into an incarnation that included me, Russell Stone, Paul Reed Smith, Greg Phillips on drums, and Kerry Ziegler on bass. And
see, I remember Bernie Nikelski too at one point.
Well,
that
sure.
was later, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the original lineup was, I think Mark Chilcote was the drummer.
Okay. Yeah.
And the bass player was Mike Chalet. But Charlie's and we were all playing together. It was all incestuous. John Van Dyke eventually had the Jude band with Jude and Mark from Band of a Thousand Names, and I think Mike Chalet played bass in that too. And then eventually, Telluride was still playing. that ended. You know, we're into the early '80s now, and John and I ended up merging with a band from DC called Small Talk, and that happened for a while. But Charlie's was it was just a bright, immediate light. It was the center of our universe for 3 or 4 years or 5 years, and then it was gone. You know, the city always hated Charlie's because of everybody went there to party, and eventually it closed down. And
Had a week-long closing party.
yeah,
I remember.
yeah,
It
we
was
played
pretty
at
amazing.
it.
Yeah.
I have some recordings from it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to see those.
Well, unfortunately, there's no
yeah.
video, but I
No,
have some
but
audio,
listen, I mean-
I have some audio recordings.
Wonderful.
But the place was bulldozed, and now it's basically it's an asphalt parking lot. And I loved that place, and I actually wrote a song about it. There's a song on my new album called Charlie's Place.
That's neat.
And Charlie passed away a few years ago, but his sons are still around, Walt and Chuck, and also a daughter, Lenny. So Charlie's legacy is still around. He'll be with us for a while.
I think so. Name some other performers that used to play over at Charlie's.
Oh God, I mean, I mean, what I remember. Going there to see other bands all the time. I mean, usually it was my friends' bands,
Right.
the bands I already named. But I remember, what was the band that Larry Urey played bass in it? He worked at PRS for years and years. Groundstar.
Yeah.
Also, the Boston Brothers had a band called Whiskey Hollow. It was
They were wonderful.
a really popular band. They did a lot of
And Axel?
a lot of southern rock stuff. Yeah, Axel. There's a band from Delaware called Jack of Diamonds.
I remember.
And some of those guys went on to become the Hooters.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's neat. It's very
And
cool.
I mean, there was, a lot of, and Charlie brought in a lot of stuff like from DC, it's the first place I ever saw Danny Gatton, one of the greatest guitar players that ever walked the planet. Tom Principato, I already mentioned, Principato, Kennedy, and Wolf was the trio they were playing with at the time. Root Boy Slim and the Sex Change Band. I mean,
And you mentioned meeting Greg Phillips.
yeah, Greg's fusion band, Effort, played there. And then he continued to have bluegrass too. I think the Soldum Scene played there. But just a really great, and we haven't seen a venue like Charlie's since. I mean, he was just all about whatever it was, whatever genre it was. If it was done well and it was passionate, he would book it there. Whether it was well known or unknown, didn't matter. If Charlie liked it, it was getting booked. And chances were, if Charlie liked it, you were going to like it.
Yeah. It's special.
Pretty cool.
So, where do you see Annapolis going musically?
Well,
And where would you like to see Annapolis go?
Well, Annapolis is a pretty vibrant bar and restaurant town. There's lots and lots of bars and restaurants, and a lot of them have live music, and that's wonderful. I love going out and playing the odd bar gig, and there's some fantastic bar gigs in this town. Sam's on the waterfront. On a beautiful night in the summer, sitting out and playing at their dock bar. That could be on my list of perfect gigs, even though it's a cover gig, because the crowd there really gets into it. The After Deck, sitting there playing on a beautiful afternoon with the boats going by, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm at work right now.
It's a rough life, isn't it?
or Middleton's, or any of those.
So
bars.
when you say after deck, do you mean Buster's?
Yeah. It used to be,
See, I caught that one, but I wasn't sure that everybody else would.
When I played there, it was called the After
Yeah,
Deck.
I remember after deck.
But it's Pusser's Landing now,
Right.
in the Marriott Waterfront Hotel. So
I think Marriott is gone. I think it's the Annapolis Waterfront Hotel now.
oh, it's funny because I just played there and they told me it's at the Marriott. So maybe
We'll look it up afterwards.
maybe they're thinking
Yeah.
of it as the old name too. So
That's funny.
and Middleton's, of course, and I know that name hasn't changed
Right.
since like 1790 something. So, but yeah, there's a lot of that kind of scene is very vibrant here, and it's great for the young musicians that got to get their chops together and want to go play in front of people and build up their confidence. But Annapolis is also home to one of my favorite listening rooms, and I played there a lot, is 49 West, which is the address is the same as the name of the venue, 49 West Street. Best cup of coffee in Annapolis, and definitely the best music in Annapolis. And the guy who's the most like Charlie, right?
In terms of taste.
In terms of what he does, what he books in his place. Brian would be the closest thing we have today to what Charlie did back in the day. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one of the finest live music venues in America, Ram's Head on Stage, which is, for that size venue, like 300 people, I think it could possibly be the best venue of that size there.
What do you think we need?
I think we need more grassroots support for the arts, number one. I think any kid in elementary school that wants an acoustic guitar should get one. I think anybody that wants any kind of music or arts education, it should be accessible to them. And I know great things are being done at Maryland Hall and also with the arts magnet schools. But, whenever we see budget cuts, it's always the arts that go first. The music teacher gets fired, and they have somebody that goes from school to school, and they only have music one day a week. I would like to see more music education. And as far as more directly related to what I do, I would like to see more listening venues. We have some amazing talent here, and they're sitting in on a bar stool in the corner playing for people that aren't even listening. And I would like to see them get a chance to really get their message across in an atmosphere and an environment that's conducive to that. So I think that's what we need. We need more listening. But there's a time and a place for going out and having a meal and hoisting a few, and music always makes that more enjoyable. So I'm definitely all for that too.
Wonderful. Well, and it is nice that Annapolis is getting to be known as a music town, and that we can share that with people who come in. So,
Yep.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much for taking time with me.
You are so welcome.
I do appreciate it. Do we miss anything?
Well, I would just like to say thank you, Jenny, for
thank
everything you do.
Oh, you're sweet.
And thank you for Naptownmusic.
Oh, thank you.
Dot
You're very
US.
kind. .us, yeah. Thanks for the clarification. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Song that was written by the guy that made this guitar. How about that?
So cool.
Lori's farewell was a public affair, picture in the post. At the station, the platform packed, we all waved as she looked back. Down at the corner store, she worked the counter and I mopped the floor. the guts to say she's gone, gone. She ain't coming back. Rolling down a railway track, torn yellow and faded with age. Headline from an old news page. Pinned to my cabin wall. Winter, spring, on through the fall. She never sad, she always smiles. She never seen a man I never thought it'd be so hard, standing in that railway yard. Part of me is leaving too. A part of me she never knew. She's gone, gone. She ain't coming back. Rolling down a railway track, torn yellow and faded with age. Headline from that old news page. I pinned it to my cabin wall. Winter, spring, on through the fall. She never sad, she always smiled. She never seen a man smile.
Go Fab.
You want one more?
I want two more.
You want two more?
I want two. I'm demanding.
Okay, how about
Dealer's choice.
this one? I'll do the 2-minute and 30-second one. Close enough. This is song's called Sierra, and the cool thing about this song is that it's got all of the words from the NATO alphabet in it. That's the words they use in the radio, you know, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, etc. It's got all those words in alphabetical order. Let's see if you can pick out what they are. Short version, here we go. Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, do you read me? Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, loud and clear. Golf, Hotel, India, I'm waiting for your call. There ain't no miscommunication here. Juliet, Kilo, Lima, do you want me? Mike, November, Oscar to sign off. Hey Papa, Quebec, your Romeo is waiting here for you. If only you return my lonely call. Sierra, I swear I'd do anything for you. I'd love to do the tango with you in your uniform. Sierra, declare the victor of this war, and say you love me in that whiskey voice that I adore. Big finish. Sierra, I swear I'd do anything for you. I'd love to do the tango with you in your uniform. Sierra, it's not fair, I don't know what else to do. It's X-ray, Yankee, Zulu, I love you. X-ray, Yankee, Zulu, I love you. All right, one more.
Yes, please.
So that was, let's see. How about why don't I play one of these weird ones?
Now, what exactly is that?
This is an octave mandolin,
Ah,
and it's strung like an Irish bouzouki. It's got
so
octave.
it's a hybrid? That's gonna make sense.
verse and a chorus of this.
I heard my neighbor's rooster crow early in the day, and I heard his axe from over the hill saying I'm going away. Well, some men love the city life, some men love the town. Me, I'm down on the lonesome hills, and they're all settled down with the fiddle and the bowl and the firelights glow. You can hear that lonesome sound. I'll leave behind my trouble and mind, roll the whole around with the fiddle and the bowl and the firelights glow. You can hear that lonesome sound. I'll leave behind my trouble and mind, roll the whole around. I'll leave behind my trouble and mind, roll the whole around.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's got a beautiful sound. I mean, it's well played too, but it's got a beautiful sound.
Yep.
Thank you. Very cool.